Iran war is exposing cracks in America's image as a global superpower. Since the conflict began, a series of inconsistent statements from Donald Trump, along with repeated missteps by U.S. forces, have raised serious questions about America's military strength. On one hand, Washington talks about negotiations with Tehran. On the other, it's quietly preparing to deploy troops on Iranian soil. Analysts warn that if the U.S. launches a ground invasion, it could go down as a historic mistake. In an interview with NBC News, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was asked, "Are you afraid of a U.S. ground invasion?" His response was blunt. "We are waiting for them. We are confident we can face them, and it will end in a disastrous defeat for America." Iran has also hinted that surprises are waiting for U.S. troops on its earth. In this episode of World Flux, we'll break down what kind of ground operation the U.S. might be planning, and what consequences it could face if it attacks Iran directly. Since launching joint military operations with Israel, the U.S. has carried out nearly 9,000 strikes inside Iran in just 1 month. Yet despite this massive campaign, Iran's military capabilities remain intact. The U.S. has repeatedly claimed it destroyed Iran's missiles, drones, and naval mines. But each time, Iran has responded with even stronger counterattacks, proving those claims wrong. At this point, the U.S. has already done almost everything it can from the air. It has failed to cripple Iran's military and hasn't been able to regain control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, America can't easily admit defeat and end the war. That's why the Trump administration is reportedly considering escalating the conflict with a ground invasion. According to analysts, one of the main targets could be Iran's Karg Island, a key hub for its oil exports. The U.S. has already launched airstrikes there, but failed to achieve its strategic goals. So now, the Pentagon may be planning to deploy troops to capture Karg Island, or regain control of the Strait of Hormuz. Another objective could be securing Iran's enriched nuclear materials. But doing that would require deep, prolonged operations inside Iranian territory, something that could turn into a dangerous and potentially disastrous mission, even for a highly advanced military like the U.S. The U.S. is preparing to deploy additional forces to the Persian Gulf, organized into 3 main units: the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, the USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, a unit from the 82nd Airborne Division. Together, these forces include around 7,000 troops. While effective for limited operations, experts say this number is far too small for a prolonged ground war. For comparison, the U.S. needed around 160,000 troops during the 2003 Iraq invasion. Against a country like Iran, far more powerful than Iraq, this force would likely be insufficient. Meanwhile, inside Iran, there's a growing sense of readiness and determination. Military says that if the U.S. enters through Iran's southern borders, it would be a historic mistake. Morale among Iranian forces is high, and many young people are volunteering to join the military and the IRGC. Recruitment centers are seeing increasing crowds daily, and there are plans to train over 1 million new fighters. Even teenagers as young as 12 are reportedly being allowed to participate. This confidence comes from Iran's history, especially the brutal 8-year war with Iraq in the 1980s, where Iran endured heavy losses but never collapsed. Many analysts now describe this conflict as a war of endurance. The key question is, who will run out of strength first? The U.S. is the attacking force and lacks strong moral justification for the war. Iran, on the other hand, is fighting to defend its homeland and ideological beliefs. That's why Iran's greatest weapon may not be its missiles or drones, but its determination. Iran's strategy will likely focus on increasing U.S. casualties. The more losses America suffers, the greater the political pressure will be back home. Already, public support in the U.S. is low. One survey shows only 35% of Americans support the war, while 61% oppose it. Even many of Trump's core supporters are beginning to push back. Geography is another major factor. Iran is vast, larger than Iraq and Afghanistan combined, and much of its terrain is mountainous desert. This makes large-scale military movement extremely difficult. It's also ideal for guerrilla warfare. Iran has spent over 40 years preparing for this kind of conflict. Its military structure is decentralized, with multiple units capable of operating independently. Even if its main forces are weakened,
smaller groups can continue fighting using drones, mines, cyber attacks, and missile strikes. This creates a costly imbalance, forcing the US to spend millions of dollars to counter cheap Iranian weapons. In this war, Iran doesn't need to win outright. It just needs to keep the US stuck in a long, exhausting conflict. Even if America manages to defeat Iran's military, occupying the country would be nearly impossible. Experts estimate it would require over 1 million troops to control Iran. In the end, a ground invasion of Iran could turn into a political disaster for Trump. The Iran war is already raising serious doubts about America's status as a global superpower. And it's not just Iran. History shows similar outcomes in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So the real question is, why does the world's most powerful military struggle to win wars? To find out, watch the next episode on World Flux.